This hero is fighting alone against a giant dragon, quickly defeating it. Although his power is so formidable that he can look down on enemies, he still has one major limitation. He possesses only a single mark. In this world, the mark system is divided into 4 types. The first is the creation mark. The second is the power enhancement mark. The third is the ranged attack enhancement mark. And finally, considered the most powerful, is the 4th mark, which is extremely suitable for real magical battles. From the moment a person is born, they must accept the predetermined mark they are given, which cannot be changed. Mattie refused to accept this predestination and decided to be reborn to restart his life. For Mattie, this was a revolutionary choice. He thought that if he couldn't get a worthy mark in this life, he would definitely claim one in the next life. And as he wished, in this rebirth, he not only possessed a 4th mark, but also retained all the memories from his previous life. Although his current background was somewhat humble, not being from a prestigious family, he considered it merely a minor detail that couldn't overshadow the great significance of this new opportunity. But when he arrived in the city, Mattie realized something was off. As the 4th mark he once knew had become the weakest in this era, no longer as powerful as before. Before he could investigate further, he immediately discovered an abnormal presence, something gigantic that people called a monster. The cargo carrier who was smiling just a moment ago suddenly became panic-stricken when a tiger appeared right in front of his eyes. Before he could recover his senses, it was already defeated, leaving him so stunned that he could only gape. After this incident, Mattie arrived at the imperial capital, still amazed by its splendor. In a blacksmith shop, a young girl was begging the smith to repair her sword. The reason was that the sword had been broken while the girl was trying to protect someone. But when the blacksmith learned it was a magic sword, he was helpless, as his skills weren't sufficient. Yet the girl still insisted on pleading. Mattie stood nearby, admiring the quality of the weapons there, while on the other side, the conversation between the girl and the blacksmith remained tense. Finally, the shop refused because, after all, reforging a magic sword was too difficult. The girl didn't give up, stubbornly describing every detail of the weapon, but without a proper spell, it was completely impossible. At that moment, Mattie spoke up, saying that he could do it. Although Mattie's 4-star mark wasn't suitable for this task, before he could boast about it, he was already criticized as useless. However, the girl still trusted him, even placing a gemstone for him to use, which Mattie found very interesting because it was rare for anyone to easily put their trust in a stranger like that. He thought that if the girl continued to be so careless, she might one day be swindled. While waiting, they sat down to chat. The girl introduced herself as Alma, and the reason she left home was that she didn't want to be forced into an arranged marriage by her family. Mattie also shared about his identity. The girl hoped for his help, then took his hand. Not stopping there, another extremely beautiful girl also appeared. Perhaps in his previous life, he had never known love. So in this life, whenever he faced beautiful girls, he would just freeze up. His combat experience was rich, but his romantic experience was zero, made even more complicated when the girl named Luri also seemed confused by his presence, even going so far as to declare herself still single. Before Mattie could think more about it, the sword was completed. He immediately suggested using a magic stone to finish it faster, which amazed everyone around. With his extensive experience, he easily completed the spell, something no one in this era could do. The weapon was so sharp that even a light touch could cut a table in half, causing the blacksmith to invite Mattie to stay and collaborate, but he declined. Instead, he joined everyone in entering the skill exam, not expecting that the other girl would also participate alongside him. During the test, Alma complained about the tactical subject, and all 3 promised to pass this exam. Thanks to the enchanted sword, Mattie easily defeated the teacher. Because of this, the other girl also received a high score, while Mattie continued to demonstrate his abilities to the point where the examiner had to personally witness it after hearing that he could cast spells. It turned out that this examiner was an old acquaintance of Mattie's father, who came to test his abilities. Mattie felt that he wanted to go easy on him, so he decided to use his full strength. The result stunned everyone when he could fight equally, and even forced the captain of the Knight Squadron to admit defeat. The 2 accompanying girls were overjoyed. Next came the fire arrow test. Luri was the first to take the test. She used magic enchantments that only needed to recite the correct command to work, but her weakness was her extremely poor ability to transform magical power, making it difficult to apply in real combat. Mattie thought that such ability should have been discarded, but everyone here praised it highly. Conversely, his mark was considered useless, which prompted him to prove otherwise. He released a magic orb capable of destroying the entire target, shocking everyone and earning acknowledgement that he had passed the exam. Afterward, all three enrolled in school. Mattie was still infatuated with Luri. Each time he saw her, his eyes would light up, causing Alma to tease him. The entrance ceremony took place, with the headmaster being a taciturn old man who only gave a short speech before leaving. Unexpectedly, he called Mattie for a private meeting, making him worry that he would be expelled on the first day. But when meeting the council, the headmaster asked about how he defeated the Night Squadron captain and wanted to recruit him to the school. He also revealed that thoughtless magic, which had been lost for a long time, was now only in Mattie's possession, and he wanted to ask him to teach it. Mattie accepted, becoming an unwilling lecturer, shocking students who thought he was a demon. But thanks to his methods, many who couldn't use magic before now could. Alma and Luri were proud, while he was curious about why thoughtless magic had been lost. During a training session, he held Luri's hand to transmit magical power, using the excuse of support but actually taking the opportunity for physical contact. Because of this, she could use thoughtless magic more easily. Within just 1 month, he had trained many students, and now his school was about to have a confrontation with the top academy. Their opponents were powerful noble students. Whenever the second-ranked school had a chance to win, the first-ranked school would deploy their secret cards. Mattie recognized someone who possessed magical power 10 times his own, surprising the two girls. That person mocked Mattie as someone with a useless mark, and teachers from the first school were confident they would win for the 65th time. Mattie discovered that the person standing before him was actually a demon in disguise, who had even faked his mark to infiltrate the academy. The battle began, with the others charging forward but quickly being defeated. The demon was particularly spiteful, casting a spell to attack Mattie but falling into a trap. He was forced to reveal his demon identity before everyone, through which Mattie proved that it was the demons who had caused thoughtless magic to be lost, in order to weaken humans. They had infiltrated the Noble Academy to downplay the fourth mark magic. Mattie decided to eliminate them, not allowing them to continue rampaging, while also proving that the fourth mark was not useless. It turned out that the reason thoughtless magic was lost was because of the demon race. He understood that in his previous life, he had once driven away the demon race, but it seemed there was still some secret hidden behind it. The army remained vigilant before the demon's corpse. Luri noticed Mattie was unharmed but still ran over, worried about him and showering him with affection. Nevertheless, Mattie was still highly praised by everyone for being able to eliminate a demon. In this era, human abilities were extremely weak, to the point that just defeating a single demon was enough to earn commendation. Afterward, he was summoned to the palace to meet the king. The king clearly understood that Mattie had achieved a great feat, so he wanted to bestow upon him a title and his own territory. However, this wasn't what Mattie wanted, so he declined right from the start. The king reconsidered, realizing that if this matter were announced to the public, it would easily cause panic among the people, as the demon infiltration was already a cause for concern. Instead, the king suggested gifting him a magic sword inscribed with spells, but coincidentally, it was the very sword that he had forged and inscribed earlier. Noticing Mattie's indifferent and somewhat bored attitude, the king asked if he desired something else. Seizing the opportunity, he quickly requested the right to use the resources in the dungeon, including magic stones and rare mineral veins. These were things nations fought over, but in an era where magical knowledge had declined, humans didn't fully understand their importance. The king immediately agreed, exactly as Mattie had planned. Next, the king inquired about those called the children of the demon race. They had appeared but mysteriously disappeared, including some who held important positions like the previous captain of the mage squad. It was highly likely they were demons in disguise. Notably, these children had existed for hundreds of years, indicating that demons had rooted themselves in the kingdom long ago. Mattie found it hard to accept this hypothesis, as in his previous life, he had driven them to the brink of extinction. Perhaps, during the time of his reincarnation, the remnants of the demon race had integrated into humanity to survive, then gradually spread distorted magical ideas, causing humans to weaken over time. Nevertheless, Mattie affirmed that there was still hope. However, the situation was becoming critical, as once discovered, demons no longer needed to hide and were ready to use all their might to destroy this kingdom. He predicted they still couldn't gather immediately due to lack of cohesion, but time was running short. Therefore, he proposed covering the imperial capital with a giant barrier by using divine relics, while mobilizing the second academy to gather within a month to perform the ritual. Besides that, Mattie also recommended spreading thoughtless magic to regain lost power. The king gave Mattie full authority to act. The king provided him with some basic materials, but rare ingredients had to be found in the dungeon. Of course, to enter that place, a suitable weapon was needed. Surprisingly, his old sword from his previous life appeared here. For him, it was just a prototype, but in this era, it was considered a royal treasure. Additionally, he took a necklace he had created, all of which were suitable equipment for hunting in the dungeon. Before setting out, he returned to the academy to check the situation. Students had begun to learn thoughtless magic, but changing old concepts still needed to be done gradually. Just then, Luri and Alma came looking for him, expressing shock upon hearing that Mattie intended to enter the dungeon alone. After consideration, both believed that going as a group would be safer and more effective, so they offered to accompany him. Initially, Mattie thought they would refuse, but surprisingly, both were ready to go along, only worried that they would become a burden. However, for Mattie, this was too simple. He quickly prepared weapons for them and patiently guided their combat skills. When demonstrating his skills, he amazed them both. Alma was both interested and concerned, fearing that she couldn't perform. Mattie reassured and encouraged her, pointing out that with her 2-star minor mark, her compatibility with the archer role was very high. Hearing this praise, Alma immediately became happier. Meanwhile, Luri was particularly curious about spell magic. Mattie explained thoroughly, making her even more interested, begging him to teach her right away. Thanks to this, an official team was formed, with Mattie taking the vanguard role, while the 2 girls would support from behind. The 3 quickly entered the dungeon. With rich experience from his previous life, Mattie easily controlled the situation, even proactively leading monsters out as targets for the 2 to practice on. Alma was initially hesitant, but thanks to patient guidance, she gradually gained confidence and shot down monsters. Afterward, he continued to teach advanced skills, making her arrows more accurate and powerful. Luri was taught how to create and use spells. Thanks to Mattie's mentoring, both made rapid progress. They could even coordinate seamlessly to eliminate high-level monsters on the 10th floor, something they never expected. Witnessing this, Mattie was satisfied, but also aware that the road ahead still held many challenges. Therefore, he decided to rest for a while to nurture his teammates, while personally venturing deeper into the dungeon to search for rare materials and challenge his own limits. At the 25th floor, where even the legendary 30-person team once struggled to proceed, Mattie went straight down alone. At the bottom of the dungeon, countless powerful monsters appeared, but he easily cleared them and faced the boss, a giant white snake. With his current strength, just one hit of poison could be fatal, but instead of retreating, Mattie enjoyed the battle. One slash only cut off a patch of scales, making the monster even more frenzied. Then, he unleashed all his real skills, increasing magic power to strengthen his sword, then decisively delivered a fatal strike, chopping off the snake's head, causing a resonance that shook the entire dungeon. The 2 girls were still worried about him. Mattie then returned to his 2 teammates, casually flexing that he had just defeated a small pet snake. After leaving the dungeon, the group quickly arrived at the Merchant Guild. They were immediately scrutinized by many eyes, as the second academy was now the center of attention, largely due to the many students, especially first-year students, who under Mattie's direct guidance had continuously succeeded in hunting monsters. This time, the 3 came to sell materials, yet there were still people who thought that the 4-star mark was useless, clearly unwilling to update their information. Only when Mattie brought the giant snake head to the place did the entire Merchant Guild become shocked and astounded, even more stunned when they discovered that Mattie could not only use magic, but also possessed many other rare types of magic. Then he continued to bring out a giant magic stone that made everyone's jaws drop. To others it was no different from a priceless treasure, but in Mattie's eyes, it was just a small stone, not yet worthy of being called super huge. In fact, to create a complete barrier requires a much larger magic stone, but since he had hunted it himself, it wasn't a big deal for Mattie. He just needed to go back and get a few more. The real problem was that the Merchant Guild currently didn't have enough money to purchase such terrifying materials. In other words, they had almost exhausted their assets. After calculation, they could only pay 750 silver coins. Afterward, the group decided to divide it equally into 3 parts. Initially, the other 2 intended to refuse, thinking this money wasn't directly earned by them. But then they thought, why not take it if it's money? Just at that moment, Mattie suddenly sensed an unusual energy, immediately deciding they must return to the academy right away, while the two companions also clearly felt the violent magical fluctuation at that place. It turned out that two demons had targeted the second academy. They were looking for the person who had killed their companion, still confidently believing that humans were still weak. Mattie quickly realized their strength was superior to the one who had been eliminated before. Knowing that his teammates would have difficulty coping, he immediately stood up to take responsibility. To prevent the other two from getting in the way, Mattie assigned them the mission to return to the academy to defend, preventing demons from infiltrating. Then he proactively appeared to face the enemy, not waiting for them to strike first. However, ordinary attacks could hardly wound the demons, forcing him to use enhancements. The battle quickly erupted, both sides probing while launching attacks, but the demons were originally arrogant, proud of their own strength, not bothering to talk much and directly attacking with powerful magic. To Mattie, those attacks were just warm-ups. He could even absorb magical power from the opponent's techniques and turn it into strength for himself. He understood the demon's nature of always looking down on humans. Just a little provocation, and they would immediately show openings, making it easy to counterattack. After holding on for a while, Mattie decided to retreat according to strategy, while his archer teammate had prepared beforehand, just waiting for the opportunity to launch accurate shots that significantly weakened the enemy's strength. As expected, one demon was separated for the two girls to deal with, while the stronger one directly confronted Mattie. He confidently cast area of effect magic, but with rich experience from his previous life, Mattie easily neutralized it and immediately counter-attacked with his sword, wounding him and making him doubly angry. Although he tried to teleport to escape, he failed and was eventually severely wounded by Mattie's sword. Just as he was about to finish him off, the demon surprisingly set a trap, temporarily putting Mattie at a disadvantage, forcing him to engage in direct sword combat. But in reality, he was so frightened that he was thinking of escaping. But before he could run away, he was hit by Mattie's electric shock technique, falling unconscious when his magic power was exhausted. Fortunately, Mattie discovered it in time, because if left alone, he could have created more monsters. Meanwhile, the two girls fought while retreating, continuously shooting arrows and spells that confused the enemy, eventually eliminating him. When everything was over, they were praised by the people, while Mattie clearly understood that the trouble had not yet stopped. Afterward, the group was summoned by the king for rewards, but the rewards were just old worthless things, even items that Mattie had discarded before. He didn't care, his only goal was to eliminate demons, and if possible, the more dungeons the better. People's surprise increased when they learned that was all he asked for, while the other two girls maintained their pragmatic nature, happy as long as there was money. Just then, Mattie sensed another strange energy, immediately stopping the reward ceremony and going to find the hidden one. He quickly discovered a hidden magical eye and destroyed it. The voice of a demon, believed to be the former captain of the mage squad, immediately rang out. Mattie analyzed that the demons had grasped all the information of humans, and also sensed that at a distant location, there was a strong magical reaction, highly likely to be a village that had been destroyed and now become a demon base. He decided to go deal with it, but the travel route was quite far, while his teleportation magic wasn't sufficient. When he admitted that he could use teleportation, the headmaster of the second academy was even more surprised, but nonetheless, they still needed to find suitable transportation for long-distance travel. While the headmaster was enthusiastically preparing to fight the demons, Mattie quietly left, because he originally didn't want to be involved too much. He decided to find his own means of transportation, making the two girls curiously follow. Mattie worried when he sensed the weak energy of a familiar creature, finally arriving at the spot. And before their eyes appeared a giant dragon that could breathe fire, but actually, it was a black dragon, a legendary creature that had once destroyed kingdoms in mythology. While the two girls were terrified, Mattie just treated it like a pet, as they both had known each other from the previous life. However, the dragon had forgotten his energy signature, and immediately attempted to attack with dragon breath. Unexpectedly, Mattie easily dispelled it, revealing its true form. Finally, when it recognized the person who had defeated it in the past, it trembled with fear, bowing its head to apologize, making the two girls even more astonished. Mattie immediately went straight to the point, requesting it to be their transportation, because currently teleportation magic was limited, and they needed a flying vehicle. Although reluctant, since Mattie had once beaten it badly, the dragon didn't dare to show attitude, except that its wings were now tattered. It turned out that after Mattie's reincarnation, this stupid dragon had been involved in a terrible accident, colliding with a nuclear reactor, causing many countries to be wiped out, which was also the reason human civilization had declined as it was now. It hoped to have its wings healed. Mattie tried using the 4-star mark for therapy. Though not able to recover perfectly, it was enough to fly. Afterward, the dragon agreed to keep its identity secret, turning back to greet the two girls. Finally, the group rode the dragon and flew into the sky, feeling extremely excited, except that the dragon intended to fly according to divine sword standards, at a terrifying speed that could kill humans. Fortunately, Mattie stopped it in time, letting it fly slowly. After setting foot in the destroyed village, Mattie immediately acted to eliminate a demon guarding on a ruined tower. He quickly sensed the familiar magic flow that he had detected earlier in the castle area, while judging that entity to be only a minor threat to himself. However, what caught his attention more was another much more formidable presence, capable of hindering his plans. While he was still analyzing the situation, surprisingly, Iris nearly crashed into him, as she had lost control of her flight path and hit the tower wall hard. It had been over 5,000 years since she had used landing skills. After that incident, the group entered the tower. Mattie immediately established a telepathic communication line to maintain connection with his teammates. Not only that, but he also gave Luri a special magic circle, emphasizing that they would have to take the initiative to seize attack opportunities. Initially, both girls thought that action was too reckless, but with confidence and persuasive arguments, Mattie made them understand that the power they now possessed far exceeded what they had before and could cope. As they went deeper, the group entered a spacious room. Here, Mattie immediately asked everyone to keep quiet, because the enemy was using a type of spell that diminished the magic flow, thereby completely concealing his presence. To quickly identify, he asked if anyone could sense which area in the room had an abnormally low magic density. Luri promptly pointed to a dim corner of the wall. Immediately, Mattie cast a dispelling spell, causing the concealment charm to disappear, revealing the demon's true form. The funny thing was that the enemy still confidently thought he hadn't been discovered and continued to act in a state of trusting his disguise. Alma drew her bow, shooting an arrow straight at the enemy's head, causing him to be extremely shocked because he believed that his invisible disguise was absolutely perfect. But he still mocked and thought that the person before him couldn't possibly be the real Mattie, because the information he had showed that the young man was currently in the capital, unable to move quickly enough to be present here. Immediately, the demon rushed to attack Mattie. Meanwhile, he just silently signaled for his teammates to move into position, preparing to continue launching arrows. Continuously hit by many arrows, the demon gradually became confused. He had recognized the strange power in the arrows. Mattie revealed that it was the result of the magic circle he had given to Luri earlier, which turned the arrows into tools that spread magic poison, causing the opponent's internal magic flow to be disrupted, gradually accumulating, making him lose flexibility, his vision blur, and his entire body become heavy. With no escape, the enemy had to use a desperate demon skill, misfortune. This was a type of ritual that exchanged life for a giant form along with superior strength, although the effective time was extremely short. In the new state, he intended to attack the two girls, surprised to discover that the targets before him were just illusions due to the effect of the magic poison. Just as he was confused, Alma immediately finished him with a lethal arrow to the head. Before he vanished, Mattie bid farewell by calling his correct name. Now, the truth revealed that he had once been the captain of the former Mage Association, now turned into a demon. Afterward, Mattie instructed the two girls to stay with Iris, while he himself went forward to confront the final demon. To prepare, he crushed some magic stones, activating the massive release of monsters, forcing the enemy to show himself. Sure enough, a demon hiding in the mist revealed himself. From the beginning, he had the advantage, rushing in and cutting off Mattie's left arm. He demanded that Mattie choose his own way to die. This was just a trap set up by Mattie beforehand. By having prepared a regeneration spell in advance, he immediately reattached his arm to its original position, while explaining that while pretending to be at a disadvantage, he had timely placed an analysis spell, thereby grasping all information about the opponent's magic. The demon panicked, realizing he had been tricked. Mattie didn't miss the opportunity, swinging his sword to cut into his wrist. The blade was pre-mixed with magic poison, creating a destruction effect. making the opponent realize that this was the same type of poison spell that had been used to defeat him. In desperation, he was forced to use a new skill, a premium version of Misfortune. Though stronger, the outcome was the same, as this skill took the user's life as the final price. When he used it, the entire area was shrouded in thick mist, covering all directions, completely hiding his whereabouts. With combat experience and preparation, Mattie quickly dispelled it. He revealed that the charm the demon suffered from not only caused magic chaos, but also forced him to absorb excess magic from the environment, leading to an inevitable explosion. As a result, his body violently exploded when the magic stone was destroyed, leaving another giant stone in its place. Just as the battle ended, Lori rushed down from Iris's back, cheering to congratulate him. Mattie calmly announced that the stone that had just appeared was a dragon vein. Based on the spells inscribed on the dragon vein, he deduced that the demon's goal was to use this place to create an army of monsters, with the purpose of destroying the capital and all its inhabitants in one decisive move. Although both girls showed concern, Mattie reassured them that after the recent explosion, the monster spawn point had shifted about 10 kilometers, and the immediate task was to need support from the remaining students to prevent a large-scale attack. Immediately, they returned to the academy to report to the headmaster. On the way back, Iris asked Mattie what she should do in the future if he left. Mattie then suggested she try a shape-shifting magic to become human. Iris actually succeeded and transformed into a beautiful red-haired girl, completely naked because she had never worn human clothes. Mattie smiled and suggested that she could join the academy as an exchange student. Initially, Iris was hesitant, but under his persuasion, she finally agreed. That night, the group handed over the spoils of war to the headmaster. He was surprised, even worried that if this continued, they would deplete the kingdom's treasures. This time, instead of receiving a reward, Mattie made another request. He wanted Iris to become an exchange student. The headmaster agreed, but set the condition that she must pass the entrance exam with excellent results. Mattie immediately agreed, only requiring the headmaster to directly supervise the exam, to ensure Iris controlled her power, avoiding damage to the academy. The next day, the exam began. In the theory section, Iris completely failed because she knew nothing about human academics or culture. In the practical part, the results were the opposite. In the sword fighting test, although handling the sword clumsily, she only needed one punch to send her opponent flying to the ceiling of the tower. This made the headmaster suspect whether the girl before him was really human or not. In the spell testing section, Iris performed magic that was too powerful, causing 2 consecutive explosions, but still couldn't destroy the target. On the third attempt, following Mattie's suggestion, she summoned a terrible spell that destroyed the entire training ground along with all targets. Finally, the headmaster had to accept her as a special exchange student. Some time later, Mattie entered the dungeon, where students of the Second Academy were extracting the necessary minerals to build a protective barrier. It was there that the headmaster revealed a concerning truth to him. The Second Academy didn't have enough students bearing the glory mark, the type of mark considered most effective in refining minerals, as the First Academy held a monopoly on this resource. Hearing this, Mattie immediately asked if there was any possibility of cooperating with the First Academy in the barrier construction effort. The headmaster frankly stated that the relationship between the 2 academies had long been completely fractured, seemingly beyond repair. Nevertheless, for the common good of the capital, he was still willing to appeal to the king if truly necessary. Just at that moment, the headmaster of the First Academy appeared in the office. He clearly expressed his displeasure at being summoned so abruptly. With an arrogant attitude, he looked down on and treated the Second Academy headmaster as a subordinate. The headmaster immediately reminded him that there was no hierarchical system between the academies. However, Fakia still stubbornly insisted that the Second Academy was inferior, citing their failures in previous tournaments, while the First Academy always held the advantage. In the face of such arrogance, the headmaster ignored all provocations, only pleading for his support in building the barrier to protect the kingdom. But of course, Fakia refused, persistently denying, even considering the Second Academy's recent victory in the tournament as worthless because of demon interference, though the demon he mentioned was actually one of his own students. In this tense situation, Mattie spoke up, proposing to reorganize the inter-academy tournament, in which the losing side must comply with the winner's demands. This proposal made Fakia accept, but with the condition that Mattie and his friends couldn't participate. Although the headmaster was somewhat worried, Mattie firmly agreed, and the match was scheduled to take place after 2 days. When the day of competition arrived, A large number of First Academy students bearing super powerful marks entered the arena, while the Second Academy had only 5 participants. Among them, their marks consisted of only 1 failure mark, 2 ordinary marks, and 2 support marks. Looking at this, Fakia laughed, considering it just a joke and claiming victory was certainly his. However, when the match began, things were completely opposite. The Second Academy students easily swept away their opponents, as they proactively attacked immediately while the First Academy students were still taking time to recite spells to activate their magic. It turned out that the First Academy only accepted traditional spell recitation, while the Second Academy had learned the technique of casting spells without recitation thanks to Mattie's teaching, leading to a convincing victory for the Second Academy. However, Fakia refused to acknowledge the result. He claimed that the Second Academy students were no different from wild beasts and insisted they were unworthy. The headmaster immediately retorted that a student's talent couldn't be denied just because of differences. Fakia remained obstinate, demanding proof through another match, and personally requested Iris to participate. She refused, citing she had no weapon. Mattie then suggested giving her the headmaster's sword. Before handing it over, Fakia carefully examined it, concluding it was just an ordinary sword, even mockingly calling it scrap copper. But when Iris drew the sword, she easily bent it like bending a toy. Fakia lost his composure, exclaiming that she was a monster, no different from the other students of the Second Academy. Not stopping there, the headmaster questioned Fakia why he didn't let his students practice non-recitation magic techniques, despite it being a direct order from the king aimed at strengthening the entire kingdom. To this question, Fakia casually replied that he only followed the kingdom's educational principles, disregarded common marks, and boldly declared he didn't need to care about His Majesty's orders. Right at that moment, the king, who had been silently observing from the arena tower, stepped forward. He was furious, immediately ordering his guards to arrest Fakia for treason. While being dragged away, he still didn't stop cursing the Second Academy, swearing revenge. The king then ordered the First Academy to cooperate with the Second Academy and forced their students to learn the non-recitation magic skill. Mattie and his teammates ventured deep into a dungeon with the goal of finding a giant magic stone, about 70 centimeters in diameter. The most feasible method to obtain such a stone was to summon a monster using magic. Before doing so, Mattie had the group practice by facing countless mid-level monsters. He observed and evaluated each person based on their ability to control their power. Finally, they obtained a suitable stone. Mattie asked Luri to set up a magic array around it, then told Iris to transfer a portion of dragon energy into it. But Iris accidentally transferred too much, causing a giant dragon to be summoned. A fierce battle immediately broke out. Mattie instructed Iris to use dragon language to provoke it, calling it a divine lizard, an insult. Anger caused the dragon to focus all its attention on her, creating an opportunity for Luri to enhance the arrows for Alma to shoot. However, the terrible power of the beast made the initial attacks useless. Mattie still didn't give up, asking everyone to continue to hold off the enemy, while he established many magic formations under the ground. In a dangerous moment, Iris timely saved Luri and Alma from a deadly swipe, then used all her strength to knock the dragon down. However, it immediately responded with its final move, the destructive dragon breath. Mattie had utilized a mirror formation to counterattack, but the plan nearly failed when Iris couldn't retreat in time and fell into a hole she had created herself. In that situation, Mattie erected a protective barrier to shield her, taking the full blast of the explosion. It seemed perilous, but he survived, only revealing himself in that moment. Thanks to their combined efforts, the group obtained the magic stone from the dragon's body. After the victory, Mattie officially invited Iris to join the adventure group. Receiving the consent of Alma and Luri, she happily accepted. However, because Iris was in human form, Mattie had to design special training for her to adapt. He even broke part of the training ground for Iris to practice, learning to run without tripping. In the first challenge, she had to protect a turtle shell on her head while Alma used her bow to shoot. Luri was responsible for crafting new armor and weapons, including an 8-layer armor to withstand different magical levels. Upon completion, Alma tried the new bow, while Iris practiced with a bladeless spear to adapt to her strength. Everything progressed well according to plan. Mattie thought his time to leave the academy was approaching. Many types of demons appeared simultaneously, gathering in groups to invade the kingdom's capital. To counter this, the headmaster had initiated a campaign to erect a magical barrier covering the entire capital. The mission of other student groups was to protect the city's borders against the threat of demons, while Mattie and his group, along with a few other students, were responsible for collecting the remaining resources. Shortly after, Alma and Luri reported to Mattie that there were signs of demons appearing in a specific area of the city. Immediately, Mattie determined the cause to be a type of teleportation called a magic route, then assigned the girls to handle the situation while he focused on completing the summoning of the barrier. Following instructions, Alma, Luri, and another female student immediately proceeded to the reported location. Upon arrival, they discovered a magic gate opening in the sky. Although no demons had appeared yet, all three still followed Mattie's directive, preparing arrows made from special materials to deal with them. At the same time, Luri was assigned the task of selecting appropriate spells and magic circles. Initially doubtful, she succeeded in enhancing the arrows and handed them to Alma. This ability amazed the female student accompanying them at the capabilities of Mattie's group. Just then, the first demon emerged from the gate and was quickly taken down by Alma with a precise shot. The second one appeared. Alma's arrow wasn't strong enough to destroy it, but Luri immediately drew her sword, cutting its body in half. Soon after, the magic gate closed. The three girls celebrated their victory, as this was the first time they could eliminate demons without direct assistance from Mattie. However, their joy didn't last long as they sensed an enormous magic flow emanating from the center of the capital, forcing them to return immediately. Upon meeting again, Mattie reassured his teammates not to worry too much. This magic source originated from an upgraded form of the magic route, sacrificing one demon to teleport over longer distances. Since no demon volunteered, they usually chose the weakest as a sacrifice. Mattie also predicted that a new gate would soon open at the second academy, and instructed the girls to try to hold off the demons until he completed the protective barrier. Right after, Iris appeared, bringing 40 mystery boxes to support the magic casting process. Meanwhile, Alma and Luri were given a large amount of magic stones that Mattie had prepared by the headmaster. However, Luri was still worried, because if they failed to summon the defensive spells, the consequences would be immeasurable. The prediction soon came true. A magic gate suddenly opened above the academy. Demons poured down, casting spells to attack students. Fortunately, one of the traps was activated in time to stop them. On the headmaster's orders, some students immediately counterattacked with magic, but none hit the target. Alma continued shooting arrows, but the demons caught and broke them. At that time, Luri was focusing on a complex magic circle that she had no experience with. The process took a lot of time, forcing Alma and other students to form a defensive line to buy time. In this tense moment, Luri worried that if she failed, everyone would lose their lives. Previously, she had always succeeded thanks to Mattie's guidance, but now she was completely alone. But then, the encouragement from her teammates added courage, helping her become more determined. Finally, Luri successfully created a magic arrow and gave it to Alma. She immediately shot it towards the demon. Although it dodged, Alma rushed forward, guiding the arrow to pierce through the opponent's heart. Right after, the other students also completed their spells, destroying the demon. But the joy quickly vanished. A stronger demon appeared, casting destructive magic that dazed the students while also destroying Mattie's protective layer. Without the wall, hope seemed to fade. However, Alma still resolutely held off the demon to wait for Mattie to complete the ritual. Luri stood by her side, preparing to face each wave of demons. Just when the situation was critical, Mattie returned. He quickly cut down a demon, then offered two choices. Either the demons would die begging, or they would die in shame. Not giving the opponent time to respond, Mattie performed his sword technique, executing all the demons threatening the capital. After the battle, Mattie reunited with his teammates. The group praised him for the extraordinary victory. He modestly said that the success was thanks to the sword forged by Luri, as well as Alma's brave defense. Afterward, they returned to the Dragon Vein, where Mattie placed the magic stone, successfully activating the protective barrier for the capital. Nevertheless, he still warned that the danger hadn't ended. The magic power of the slain demons had seeped into the Dragon Vein, causing a more powerful army to approach. From the horizon, groups of monsters appeared, but were quickly defeated by traps and the students' continuous spells. Surprisingly, 3 giant monsters arose, yet under Mattie and his teammates' hands, they also fell one by one. But then, the greatest calamity named the Void Devourer appeared, swallowing monster corpses to grow. This giant beast wasn't meant to provide valuable materials, so Mattie ordered Luri to carve a magic circle onto the stone, forcing it to evolve into the form of a mythical creature. A decisive battle took place, and finally, thanks to close coordination, the group severely wounded the monster, allowing Mattie to deliver the finishing blow, cutting off its head. As the dust settled, Mattie informed the headmaster that he planned to leave the academy, setting out to search for dragon veins scattered around the world. The headmaster clearly understood that Mattie had far exceeded the academy's training capabilities, but he wasn't expelled. Instead, the headmaster gave him a special scholarship, allowing freedom to return anytime without administrative obstacles from the kingdom. This was also an opportunity for the academy to spread its reputation from his achievements. Mattie accepted the offer. His companions were sad at the prospect of parting, but then the headmaster extended the same conditions to the three girls. Without hesitation, they accepted to continue adventuring with Mattie. Finally, the headmaster and students went to the gate to bid farewell to the group. From here, a new journey began to unfold before them. The group's next destination was Melchia, the dungeon city, a town built right on top of a gigantic dungeon with hundreds of deep levels. This information immediately made Mattie curious, as in his memories from his previous life, he had never heard of this place's existence. Although Lurie noted that the journey would take several days, both Iris and Mattie firmly stated that they would only need an afternoon, as they would take a shortcut through the forest known to be the lair of many dangerous beasts. Legends also told that in this forest existed a monster of superior intelligence, and that detail sparked special interest in Mattie. After a long journey through the dark forest, the group decided to stop and rest. Mattie offered to hunt by himself to avoid depleting their food reserves. Following the traces of magic power, he noticed that the monsters in the forest moved in an organized manner, making him believe they were following the orders of a higher being. Mattie immediately deduced that the leader of the pack could be the legendary monster. Shortly after, he was suddenly ambushed by a white ape, which he easily subdued. He quickly returned to the girls and showed them the animal's carcass. Lurie immediately recognized it as a monkey, an animal known for its intelligence. However, she didn't rule out the possibility that this could be the creature mentioned in the forest legend. Additionally, Mattie had hunted a giant wild boar to prepare a meal. This amazed Alma and Lurie, as they had never tasted this type of meat, but eventually, both agreed to try it once. Next, Lurie used magic to create a pot, while Iris delivered a powerful punch to a tree trunk to get firewood. Alma took charge of cooking, intending to prepare wild boar soup, but that effort quickly became a disaster. The soup pot exploded because she had added a strange spice found in the forest. In the end, the group had to eat roasted wild boar meat. Nevertheless, Alma still insisted on having everyone try her soup, but even Iris's black dragon instinct couldn't stand it. Just after one sip, she vomited it all out. After the meal, they continued their journey. Mattie noticed that the dragon magic hidden in Iris's body frightened the monsters, causing them to avoid her. This advantage helped them quickly reach Melchia before dark. When they set foot in the city, the group was astonished by the dilapidated scenery. A special magical street lamp attracted their attention due to the unusual energy flow emanating from it. Just then, a resident warned them not to get too close, as these artifacts often exploded suddenly and had claimed the lives of 10 people in the past year alone. Sure enough, shortly after, the lamp exploded right before their eyes. Fortunately, the group was only startled and unharmed. A local merchant then explained that Melchia's lord had forbidden the use of magic stones for energy, as these were the city's most valuable export. Instead, they extracted energy directly from the dragon vein. Mattie then asked him if the small population here was related to the lord's policy. The merchant confirmed this and also revealed that on the 10th floor of the dungeon, there was an extremely powerful beast. The lord had dispatched most adventurers to deal with it, but none had returned alive. Afterward, the group went to the Adventurers Guild to request a permit to investigate the dungeon. However, the receptionist informed them that they needed the lord's approval, meaning Melchia was completely under the dictatorial rule of an incompetent person. To get a permit, they had to perform special missions serving the lord's personal interests. Just then, another receptionist rushed in, asking if anyone knew healing magic, as many adventurers had just returned from the dungeon with serious injuries. Hearing this, Mattie immediately volunteered, and the group was taken to the city's church. Here, they witnessed a tragic scene, a huge number of injured people, while there were too few healers. Mattie quickly realized the cause was that the Lord had dismissed most physicians, considering them a waste of treasury funds. Without hesitation, he began treatment. Mattie categorized each patient's injuries, marking them with wooden pieces. Higher numbers were for the most serious cases, lower numbers for minor wounds. He asked his companions to assist based on this system. However, before starting, the city's main healer intervened, arguing that a child should not interfere. Mattie then demonstrated his ability. He activated his mark and immediately healed a severely injured patient. Faced with undeniable evidence, the main healer bowed in apology and placed himself under Mattie's direction. Thanks to this, with everyone's cooperation, all patients were saved. Afterward, the main healer revealed that the previous lord had died in his sleep, with the position being passed to an incompetent successor. This information made Mattie begin to suspect that the current lord was a demon. Unwilling to sit idle, that night in their inn room, he wrote a letter to the headmaster, requesting the king's permission to investigate deeper into the abnormalities in Melchia. The letter was carefully disguised to avoid detection by enemies. The next morning, the group went to the dungeon's entrance. Its fragile structure allowed them to enter easily. Inside, they quickly defeated the monster that was supposedly the city's threat and brought its skeleton to the guild to claim the reward. But the receptionist informed them that the reward would only be given after the lord personally verified it. When asked how they had accomplished this, Mattie humbly replied that the credit belonged entirely to everyone's team spirit. Afterward, using magic, Mattie read the letter that the receptionist sent to the lord. In the letter, she described the 3 girls as beasts, while Mattie was just an ordinary healer. In another scene, the lord received the letter, showing clear interest and began planning to deal with the group. Meanwhile, Mattie and his friends used the remaining treasures to exchange for food. Leaving the restaurant, they discovered a group of people following them, seemingly the lord's men. Recognizing the situation, Mattie decided to expose the dictator who held power in Melchia. Mattie led the group into a small alley and activated a type of telepathy spell to communicate with the girls. He informed them that they were being followed, then quickly devised a plan to probe the intentions of their pursuers. After reciting a disguise spell, the entire group completely disappeared, leaving the henchmen bewildered. They immediately split up to search the area, until Mattie and his friends proactively reappeared before them, pretending to ask for directions back to the inn. A man accidentally revealed the exact location where the group was staying. Mattie then replied that he had never told him where they were staying, thus exposing their plot. One of the henchmen lunged forward, grabbing Mattie and threatening to kill him if the group didn't immediately obey orders. Mattie pretended to be an obedient hostage, aiming to learn the entire plan they were hiding. Another boasted that capturing Mattie proved he was the weakest in the group. They took advantage of the fact that he had previously treated injured adventurers in the church, using that to threaten the girls to obey the Lord's orders, or else both Mattie and they would lose their lives. Mattie felt too bored with this farce and ordered Iris to handle them without using weapons. In just a moment, Iris easily defeated all of them with overwhelming strength, without any difficulty. Mattie cast a tracking spell on the henchmen to determine the connection between them and the demon's orders. The next morning, when the group woke up at the inn, Mattie reported that he had received a response from the king. They quickly set out for a mine tunnel, where they met the royal messenger named Eyes. He announced that the order to arrest Melchia's lord, known as Dorji, had been approved. He had committed many crimes against the people and had conducted illegal mining operations in the city. By the king's command, Mattie and his group could directly carry out the arrest under Ai's supervision. Accepting the mission, the group headed straight to what was believed to be Dorji's final hiding place. Upon arrival, they noticed this area was extremely heavily guarded. Mattie still placed complete trust in the team's abilities. They broke through, confronting Dorji's trusted followers. A series of spells were cast in attack, but all became useless against the solid defensive barrier that Luri had erected. Mattie unleashed a lightning strike that knocked out all enemies in an instant. Afterward, they proceeded directly to the basement of the mansion, where Mattie clearly sensed Dorji's presence, who was still confidently believing his henchmen had dealt with the threat. Mattie's sudden appearance terrified Dorji. He hurriedly summoned dozens more subordinates, but all of them were quickly incinerated by Mattie with a fire destruction spell. Dorji was shocked because until now, he had thought Mattie was just an ordinary healer. Eyes read out the authorities and declared Dorji arrested by the king's order. But he stubbornly refused to cooperate, even arrogantly declaring that a child couldn't deprive him of his freedom. Dorji further threatened that if anything happened to him, a terrible disaster would befall the city of Melchia. Mattie just snapped his fingers, instantly rendering him unconscious. Eyes pledged to escort Dorji back to the capital for interrogation. Mattie still wanted to investigate why the Lord had known their plan in advance. He found a partially burned letter in the room, containing information about the king's order and details related to the corruption in Melchia. Through an analysis spell, Mattie concluded that the mastermind was none other than a demon. What the demons were actually targeting was the dragon vein, which was even larger than the capital's dragon vein, and if manipulated with appropriate dark magic, it could cause a global catastrophe. Eyes wanted to return to the capital immediately to inform the king when suddenly the ground violently shook. The demons were trying to alter the dragon vein's structure for their destructive plot. Hundreds of monsters were swarming towards Melchia, preparing to attack the city. They only had about 2 hours to stabilize the dragon vein before the horde arrived. When entering the dungeon, the group discovered there were no demons here. Mattie immediately guessed that they had retreated deep into the lower levels to set traps. After finding the dragon vein's location hidden behind a wall, they sensed the demon aura escaping from it. Mattie assigned the girls the task of restoring the dragon vein to its natural state, while he would directly confront the demons. To coordinate, he immediately maintained a telepathic channel, in which Luri was responsible for casting the magic formation, while Iris and Alma took on protective roles. Mattie discovered the mastermind demon behind the attack. It was using a communication spell to exchange information with another demon far away. Thanks to this, he silently listened to the entire dialogue, learning many details about their plot. When the conversation had just ended, Mattie immediately rushed forward, swinging his sword to attack. The strike was blocked by a magical barrier. He continued to monitor the instructions that the commander transmitted to his subordinates, thus realizing that their tactics were designed to counter those possessing the fourth mark. Mattie immediately called Luri to prepare 2 special magic circles. The battle continued, with the demon continuously launching long-range attacks. Mattie patiently endured, trying to prolong the time to gather more information. He deduced that the commander was the one who had previously intervened, turning the fourth mark into a failure. When realizing the opponent was preparing a dangerous trap, Mattie immediately requested Luri to activate circle number 14 to neutralize the trap's power, then continued to activate circle number 17 to cut off communication between the demon and its commander. Taking that opportunity, he sought to overload the protective barrier, creating a violent explosion to expose the weakness. However, the connection was re-established, causing the demon to suspect that Mattie might be the reincarnation of the monster Gaius. The commander denied this, claiming it was impossible because Gaius belonged to an ancient era, and if he really existed, he would have destroyed them long ago. Mattie realized the commander knew quite a lot about his previous life, leading him to conclude that it must be an ancient demon. The commander ordered his subordinate to sacrifice itself, using the misfortune technique to eliminate Mattie. However, he publicly declared that his mark allowed him to summon 5 types of spells simultaneously. With just a series of continuous techniques, he beheaded the demon, ending the battle. Instantly, all monsters created by the dragon vein vanished. On the other side, Alma and Iris had also eliminated all monsters in the dungeon, while Luri restored the dragon vein to its original state. Mattie tried to trace the commander demon and discovered that it had also eavesdropped on the entire conversation between him and Luri during the battle. The 2 sides connected through telepathy. The boss asked Mattie if he knew his real location. Mattie only discovered that he was near a small village called Ina, which was clearly just bait. Therefore, he stated that he didn't know the demon's whereabouts. After a brief exchange, the communication was cut off. The group decided to set up camp underground, where they seriously discussed plans for their next adventure. This time, their goal was to track down the demon boss behind recent events. When Mattie discovered traces of residual magic left by him, he quickly proposed a plan to use them to track him down. However, to accomplish this, they needed the help of a divine artifact preserved by the Leginia Alliance, an artifact Mattie himself had created in his previous life. The group needed the king's approval to cross the border. After reaching an agreement, the group returned to the capital. It took them several days of travel to reach the academy, a place once closely tied to them. But the scene before their eyes surprised everyone. The entire academy was being rebuilt on a large scale. Through the headmaster's explanation, they learned that the cause stemmed from the need to strengthen the defense system in preparation for new attacks from the demon side. Because construction was happening urgently, all classes were temporarily moved to the First Royal Academy. Here, Mattie clearly presented the situation with the demon in the Melchia mine and the plan to locate the leader across the border. After listening, the headmaster agreed to help, promising to request a border crossing permit from the king on his behalf. while also preparing recommendation letters to the Adventurers Guild to ensure the group had additional support in case of danger. While waiting for the permit, Mattie and his friends helped repair the academy, although Iris caused some trouble when she accidentally collapsed several buildings while trying to help. Finally, the permit was issued, allowing them to set foot in the border area. However, upon arrival, they were stunned to discover that the area was completely blocked off. The only condition for entry was to upgrade one's adventurer rank to Class A. The solution proposed was to travel to the Liberating Guild to take a physical test to improve their stats. Mattie also kept a backup plan. If the test failed, he would use Iris's true form as a decoy distraction. Afterward, the group went to the Liberating Adventurers Guild headquarters and was warmly welcomed by the guild president, who had been notified in advance by the king. After hearing their reason, he agreed to let them take the test and assigned an examiner. But because the examiner had a stomachache, the replacement was Giaz, a famous S-rank adventurer known for his strictness, who had failed all candidates under him. This didn't intimidate Mattie, who happily accepted the challenge. The match took place with simple rules. Whoever was knocked down would lose. Giaz affirmed he would only use a sword, no magic. But Mattie quickly sensed the huge magical potential in him. During combat, Mattie both fought and observed, realizing that Giaz instinctively used enhancement magic without reciting spells, something extremely rare. He even learned Mattie's flying technique right in the match. The battle remained tense until Mattie escalated his power, delivering a decisive blow that made Giaz fall and admit defeat. Afterward, Giaz candidly asked how to become as powerful as him. Mattie found him a worthy opponent and gave him an ancient magic book he had written, which clearly described methods of using magic without recitation to enhance physical abilities. He even affirmed that with serious practice, Giaz could surpass him. But Giaz originally didn't believe in magic, thinking that recitation only distracted. So Mattie explained that he had unconsciously been using enhancement magic. If he learned to do it actively, his power would surge. Hearing this, Giaz was excited but couldn't understand the ancient writing in the book. Then he suggested persuading Mattie to become an S-rank adventurer. But he declined, only needing a rank to enter the restricted area. The next destination was the Great Plains in the Fakia region. Upon hearing this, Giaz warned that the place was full of dangers. Many adventurer groups had disappeared and offered to help if needed. On the new journey, the group arrived at a checkpoint where guards gave them a wooden card, allowing passage through Atris. Mattie noticed there was a hidden message carved into it. Using magic to decode, he discovered it was a threat from the demon side, meaning the city had been affected. Soon after, they realized that a group of bandits was lying in ambush on the hill. Instead of fighting, Mattie proposed using a gentler method. He arranged a plan to avoid attracting attention. Alma and Luri activated an artifact that emitted a sleep-inducing scent, quickly subduing the bandits. Unfortunately, during this process, Alma couldn't resist the effect and fell into a sound sleep. Mattie woke up the two girls who were in deep slumber to continue their journey. However, just before that, Iris had taken the opportunity to tease Alma with a playful prank. She took a marker and drew a monocle and a twisted mustache on her friend's face that looked extremely odd. When she woke up, Alma couldn't hide her annoyance, her face red with anger, while everyone else laughed to tears. When the group entered the Fakia region, Luri immediately frowned because she clearly sensed the presence of demonic energy. In just a moment, she determined that there were at least 30 different demon energy flows hiding around. Faced with the girls' surprised reactions, Mattie calmly noted that those magical flows had been suppressed by a special spell, making them weaker than their actual strength. This meant that the entire city might have been occupied by demons. This news stunned everyone because demons rarely acted in such large groups. Mattie then explained that those they were facing weren't ordinary demons, but an unusual variant of greater demons. They could coordinate, use distinctive types of magic, and by working in packs, they covered up their lack of individual strength. For this reason, when combined into groups, the demon race became extremely dangerous enemies, forcing everyone to be careful. During the reconnaissance, Mattie discovered a secret entrance leading to an underground tunnel that could allow them to infiltrate the city. But the journey wasn't easy. This tunnel was carefully guarded by many soldiers. Since the group didn't want to cause a disturbance, Mattie proposed a stealthy infiltration plan. Using unique skills, he quietly passed through thick walls, placing sleeping charms that made the guards fall into a coma without triggering alarms. Thanks to this, the group entered the city safely. When setting foot on the ground, they were astonished to discover that the locals here behaved strangely. Everyone moved mechanically, emotionlessly, with empty eyes just like puppets being pulled by strings. Mattie quickly concluded that they were being controlled by a type of mind-controlling magic called thought stagnation magic. To understand the demon's real plan, the group decided to pretend they had been affected by the same spell, allowing them to blend in and infiltrate a large factory where humans lined up to work tirelessly like slaves. Inside, the truth gradually revealed that the controlled people were mining a mineral called rankine, a rare crystal with tremendous destructive power. Mattie explained that with just 1 ton of pure rankine, one could create an explosion powerful enough to wipe out an entire kingdom. Although extracting such a huge amount would take at least a century, the demon's purpose had now become clear. They were preparing for a destructive plan in the future. As night fell, the group decided to act. They had to eliminate all the demons manipulating the city, thereby rescuing the people and preserving the kingdom. Based on a map marking the exact position of each demon, Mattie and everyone formulated a meticulous strategy. Since the demons possessed shared awareness, the group had to calculate bait traps and create dispersion to separate them, then eliminate them one by one. The plan was initiated with a magic signal causing the demons to reveal themselves. Immediately, the demon leader ordered his demons to gather and surround them, but they were unaware that their numbers were being gradually eroded in the darkness as Mattie and his teammates took down one after another. In fact, from the beginning, Mattie had carefully concealed an enormous magical energy radiating from Iris's soul. At the decisive moment, this signal was released, creating a brilliant pillar of light with Iris at the center. The demons were attracted, gathering towards her, not realizing it was bait. While they focused on Iris, the rest of the group launched a preemptive strike, taking them down in chaos. The group also placed magical stones as decoys throughout the city, making the demons think they were traps, continuously spreading false information in their shared awareness network. To increase chaos, Mattie asked the girls to conceal their magical energy with disguise charms, causing the demons to completely lose direction. After a series of ambushes, they had eliminated a large number of demons. However, the demon leader quickly discovered the truth when one corpse revealed 2 magical signals, proving that the other had not died from a trap, but had been directly executed with a magic sword. He immediately changed tactics, ordering all remaining demons to concentrate in the city center. Here, he declared to his subordinates that the enemy was only trying to separate the herd because they couldn't face them all directly at once. As a final defensive measure, he planned to activate the rankine crystals, ready to destroy the entire city if necessary. In this urgent situation, Giaz appeared, stepping forward to face the demon leader directly. Meanwhile, Mattie, Iris, and the others took on the mission of clearing out the remaining forces, allowing Giaz to focus on the one-on-one battle. The confrontation was intense, with both Giaz and the leader launching deadly techniques, causing severe injuries to both sides. Despite concerns, Giaz prevented Mattie from interfering. Through observation, Mattie realized that his strength had been enhanced, proving that Giaz had comprehended the knowledge from the book he had gifted. Finally, Giaz won by continuously using the special skill Twin Steel Extinction. However, this victory came at a high price. Each slash delivered to the enemy also caused him to suffer a portion of damage, his body now deteriorating, standing on the verge of collapse. Mattie praised him profusely, and the girls also cheered happily. Mattie would quickly treat Giaz's wounds. While the group of friends erupted in joy over the victory, they didn't realize that the demon leader had not yet been completely defeated. The demon rose and was about to attack Luri and Alma, but Mattie stepped up to block that strike. It turned out that the body, which had already lost its vitality, was being controlled by an extremely powerful magic. It existed only as a tool to convey a message to Mattie. It was a threat from the true overlord of all demons, also the one who had ordered the minion that Mattie had eliminated in the Melchia mine. He informed that soon he would break the seal imprisoning him, and then he would be completely reborn. After the message was transmitted, the demon's body quickly dissolved into nothingness. At the same time, Giaz weakly begged for Mattie's help. Without timely treatment, his life would soon end here. Mattie used healing skills to restore his vitality. The demon threat had temporarily ended, and all the town's residents had also escaped from the yoke of mind-controlling magic. Taking the opportunity, Giaz used his authority as an S-rank adventurer to take over all of Fakia, and in his first command, he appointed the factory supervisor as the temporary lord. Giaz gave Mattie a special permit to enter Fakia's restricted area, and then the group continued their journey. When they arrived at the new destination, they encountered legendary ruins thousands of years old, secretly built by Mattie in his previous life. They quickly approached a pyramid-shaped structure, believed to be the gateway leading down to the dungeon storing the divine artifact he needed. Mattie nearly revealed the secret of his reincarnation when he accidentally mentioned that he himself had built these ruins. However, he skillfully shifted the topic to unsealing the pyramid. The group entered the dungeon and split up to search for lost treasures. Mattie concentrated magical power to transmit into the core of the magical seal, aiming to release the sacred artifact. Luri returned with a legendary sword originally created by Mattie in the past. He recounted that he had spent many sleepless nights forging it just because he wanted it to look majestic, but forgot to discard it before reincarnating. Alma then also returned with a giant spear. She thought Iris could use it, but because its power was so terrifying, causing everything around to evaporate, the group decided to set it aside. Iris returned with a food box that had been sealed in the dungeon for 5,000 years, long past its expiration date, and when opened, the stench made her faint immediately. Mattie completed breaking the seal and releasing the artifact, which was a tracking machine capable of precisely determining the location of any creature or deity in the world, just needing residual magic or distinctive traces of the target. To operate it, Mattie used a piece from the oil refinery in Fakia, and after analysis, the result quickly appeared. The supreme leader of the demon race was also the mastermind behind the mining operation at Melchia and the factory in Fakia, all serving the plan to exploit mineral resources to destroy all of humanity. Mattie also examined the magic stone containing traces of the demon he had obtained in the Melchia dungeon, but the machine overloaded, and the information that appeared stunned him. It turned out that the seal binding that being was about to be destroyed, and his name was Zeldius, an ancient demon possessing terrifying power beyond the group's current ability to cope with. Even Mattie, carrying the knowledge of a legendary archmage, couldn't find any method to win. The reason Zeldius was sealed was because in the past, no one had the ability to kill him, and even after centuries of training, the chance of victory remained slim. He affirmed that if they were to face him directly, the consequence would be the extinction of human civilization, and if they won, the rest of their lives would only be spent restoring the world. Hearing this, Iris couldn't help but lament that there was no weapon powerful enough to destroy Zeldius. That gave Mattie an idea to turn fate around. He took the sword that Luri had brought, put it into the machine to trace the remnants of his previous life, with the goal of finding magical treasures he had once crafted. His destination was a special sword, and through analysis, the machine indicated that it was currently in the kingdom's capital. In another vision, the seal binding Zeldius immediately collapsed, and he was completely freed. Mattie's group rode Iris in dragon form to return to the capital. On the way, he gave the girls some magic stones to help trace the sword. They sensed a terrifying magical flow erupting and deduced that Zeldius had escaped. He considered the group the only obstacle that needed to be eliminated. They had to urgently find the sword before he caught up with them. Mattie prepared for the final battle, instructing the girls to enter the royal palace's treasure vault to find the sword, while he would distract Zeldius to buy time. The defense system surrounding the capital would protect residents from demons and beasts, but it was completely useless against Zeldius. Alma and Luri set off immediately. Before leaving, they reassured that they trusted Mattie and everything would be fine. Mattie enhanced his sword and revealed to Iris that his plan was to use space-time sealing to prevent Zeldius from teleporting, which was also the type of magic once used by the demons when planning to attack the capital. However, this plan could only hold him for a short time, allowing the girls to complete their mission. Alma and Luri had discussed using force to enter the palace because time didn't allow them to explain further. Just then, a gigantic space gate opened in the sky. Mattie immediately launched a sealing attack, but failed due to Zeldius' superior power. Finally, he had to ask Iris to use Dragon Breath to counter, but that strike also didn't have an effect. Zeldius mocked their helplessness, then in the blink of an eye appeared before Mattie. He said he had been waiting for the moment to meet him, and Mattie himself admitted that the opponent radiated a destructive aura and possessed superior combat experience and skills. After the greeting, Zeldius affirmed he hadn't come to negotiate but to devastate. He drew his sword and immediately attacked Iris. Mattie hurriedly established multi-layered barriers to protect her, allowing Iris to escape by a hair's breadth. Zeldius shifted his attack to Mattie. forcing him to admit that this was the strongest enemy he had ever faced in both his lifetimes. Luri and Alma had reached the treasure room of the palace, but were stopped by soldiers. They were told they needed the king's permission. The two hurriedly explained the situation, but the soldiers didn't agree, forcing them to use force. Before the conflict erupted, the king appeared. Luri presented the matter. The king had already known that a battle had broken out outside the city. He immediately allowed them to enter and search for the precious sword. Mattie struggled to withstand each attack, and despite using all his strength, he was continuously wounded. When landing on Iris's back, he realized that to win, he might have to sacrifice his own life. Mattie recalled that in the process of searching for the mastermind behind the demon's activities in the universe, he once used an artifact created by himself in his previous life. Thanks to that, he had traced the whereabouts of a high-level demon. But because his current strength wasn't enough for a direct confrontation, he was forced to devise a plan to rekindle hope for the world. However, that demon exceeded expectations, much stronger than anything he had ever imagined. In the treasure vault of the royal palace, Alma and Luri used magic stones to search for a sword kept in a black box. They quickly sensed the fierce magical energy emanating from within. Upon drawing the sword, they both hurriedly headed straight to the battlefield. At that moment, the demon admitted that he had fully understood their plan and revealed that the capital had long been infiltrated by his minions. Mattie had only focused on keeping the protective barrier from being broken, never thinking that demons had existed inside the stronghold even before it was built. His words were proven immediately when two other demons were called back from the dead. This demon appeared and attacked Luri and Alma, but his power wasn't enough to create a significant challenge. He was quickly eliminated by them to make way for the next step. However, another demon suddenly blocked their path, demanding they hand over the sword, or else he would kill two academy students he was holding hostage. Meanwhile, Mattie discovered Zeldius' true plot. It turned out he was reviving demons that had been sealed in the capital while trying to destroy the barrier to open the way for those outside to pour in. Although Mattie tried to redirect to prevent the attack, Zeldius still surprisingly concentrated all his magic directly at Iris. With no other choice, Mattie had to rush to shield her. And at that moment, Zeldius launched a direct strike that Mattie couldn't dodge. Zeldius mocked what he called a hopeless effort, while forcing Mattie to abandon saving people and focus solely on the battle with him. For a moment, Mattie considered the possibility of sacrifice. He understood his magic was depleted, that if he gave up the fight, he still had a chance to use the last bit of energy to initiate the rebirth spell, preparing for another confrontation in the future when the balance of power had changed. But that meant abandoning his teammates and all the people he had journeyed with. This thought made it unacceptable to him, so Mattie gripped his sword tightly and continued fighting against Zeldius. At the same time, Alma and Luri found themselves in a difficult position when facing the evil demon to save the two captured students. They nearly accepted giving up the sword in exchange for lives. But before that happened, the headmaster along with a group of other students appeared just in time. With this help, Alma and Luri changed the situation, counterattacked fiercely and rescued the hostages, then defeated the evil demon. In the decisive moment, Mattie was forced to sacrifice his life force to restore magic and enhance his combat skills. He placed his trust in his teammates to obtain the sword, treating it as bait in the plan. Iris transformed into a dragon, charging straight at Zeldius and then suddenly changing back to human form to dodge. But the plan failed, causing her to fall heavily onto the academy grounds. At that critical moment, Alma threw the sword to Mattie. Just as he touched it, Zeldius unexpectedly stabbed him from behind. Everything went silent. Luri burst into tears, calling his name as Mattie's body fell lifelessly. Suddenly, the sword began to glow, revealing its hidden power. It turned out that it exchanged life to resurrect its master, while granting Mattie an enormous source of magic. Mattie awakened, his body filled with power. But that energy was so dangerous that if he lost control, he could destroy the entire world. Zeldius was terrified and believed that a human body couldn't withstand such power. Mattie replied that it didn't matter, because he could resurrect infinitely. That sword had made him immortal. Zeldius was doubtful, questioning his true identity, as a human couldn't possess power exceeding the world. Mattie answered that he was the one bearing the weakest mark, but was the strongest warrior. With that declaration, he delivered the finishing blow. Before vanishing, Zeldius admitted that he wasn't the only chaos demon in existence, and the next one would be much more ruthless in destroying this world. After the victory, Lurie ran and embraced Mattie in overwhelming joy, making him blush, though he wouldn't admit that his racing heartbeat was because of her. The headmaster and students were also present, witnessing the scene of Mattie's sword releasing power to the extent of destroying a nearby mountain. Gradually, he recovered, albeit slowly. When they went to the royal palace with their teammates, they received gratitude from the king and worthy rewards. He also allowed Mattie to keep the sword that was created by himself in his previous life. Alma only chose food from the treasure vault, while Iris accidentally found an arrow made from the remnants of a weapon that Mattie had once created. It was known that its bow had been sold to an organization and then melted down. Mattie decided to buy back all the fragments to utilize that rare mineral. Finally, the headmaster and the captain announced a strange event. At the border between the kingdom and the neighboring country, wooden puppets suddenly appeared, operating on human life energy, evidence of brutal sacrifices caused by demons. The captain suggested that Mattie's group go there to investigate and handle the threat. At night, before setting out, Mattie gave Lurie a special necklace. It seemed that the love between them was gradually blossoming. The next morning, the group departed with the headmaster and captain seeing them off. On the way, Mattie pondered Zeldius's final words that there were more powerful evil forces hiding. Nevertheless, he wasn't intimidated but remained excited, waiting for new adventures with his teammates.